Welcome, my dear social media companions and parish. It's so wonderful to be with you today. And may the name of the Lord Jesus be praised in everything that we do. May every knee bow before him and every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. And today we are into the second ordinary Sunday of the year. We are into the first half of ordinary time. And the purpose of ordinary time is to listen to Jesus, to see his actions, and to be challenged by his teaching, and to follow him. Not only to be challenged, but also to follow him, so that ultimately we make a decision to become his convinced disciples. So here we are then into the first part of ordinary time, and we have just come through Advent. We celebrated Christmas, the birth of Jesus, and now we have passed through that beautiful festival of Jesus, the light of the world, in the Epiphany. Then we met Jesus as a young adult, 33 years old, on the banks of the Jordan, being baptized by John the Baptist. And now we are into ordinary time. The purpose of ordinary time is to take Jesus seriously, to listen to him, to see him, to be challenged by him, and to hit his teaching trail. So we are on his teaching trail now. We are following Jesus. On the second Sunday of ordinary time, we see Jesus and his disciples and his mother were invited for a wedding in the village of Cana. And the title of this reflection is Jesus Reveals Himself. And Jesus reveals himself in a very public event at a wedding at Cana. Now, the whole village was invited to this wedding. This was the custom in those days. They lived in little villages, little communities, and if anybody got married, then the whole village was invited. If anybody died, the whole village turned out. Every event was a public event in that little place, in that little community. So for this wedding, all the preparations were done. The wedding ceremony perhaps was over, and the reception was on. The food was being served, and with food, in those days, also went lovely wine. The Jews loved their wine, so the wine was served. And when the wine was served, they raised the toast. And before they realized it, the wine had run out. When we are invited to a wedding reception, most of us naturally, humanly, tend to eat more and drink more. So with this big crowd, the whole village community present there, present at the wedding, then the wine ran out very fast. With the wine running out, there was an embarrassment for the host and for the young bride and groom. But Mary was present there, and Mary noticed something going wrong at the reception. She was a very perceptive person, and she wanted to enter that problem and help out and be a solution to that problem, and save the parents and the young groom and bride embarrassment from this wine running out. And she comes to Jesus. She comes to Jesus and says, "Jesus, they have no wine." Now, let's pause here for a moment and see this situation. There's a problem. Mary notices the problem and goes to Jesus. So you and I also have problems. Where do we go? To whom do we go? The wedding at Cana teaches us to go to Mary. And Mary takes us to Jesus. She takes us to Jesus, her son. And she tells Jesus, do something. They have no wine. And the situation is pretty bad. So can you do something about it? But Jesus seems to step back from the situation. But Mary, determined lady, she goes to the attendants and says, do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. Now, Jesus takes hold of the opportunity. He takes hold of the problem, and he uses it. He uses this opportunity because it's a public event. He's going to use this opportunity. He's going to use this public event, and he's going to reveal himself. So what does he do? He orders the attendants to fill the jars with water. It was the custom of the Jews to have jars of water by their houses because they didn't have piped water like we have today. Then the attendants take the water to the steward of the wedding feast. And now the water has become wine. And the steward who tastes the wine, he exclaims and declares and says, everyone serves the good wine first, but you have kept the good wine last. You have served inferior wine first, and now you're serving the good wine last. How come? What's happening here? Now listen to the words of the steward. He says, you have kept the good wine until now. You have kept the good wine until now. That means there's something going on in that beautiful phrase. Wine is the sign of God's presence. The meaning of wine in the Old Testament is wine is a sign of God's presence. And here is the new wine. Who is this new wine? Jesus is the new wine. By changing water into wine, and the best wine, Jesus is telling everybody there that he is the new wine, he is the presence of God, he is God himself, and salvation has come to them. Now, not many people at the wedding reception realized this because they were so filled with fun and frolic and enjoyment that they missed this profound meaning. But listen to what John the evangelist of the gospel says. Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory. And the only people who were perceptive and noticed this were his disciples. And when they noticed it, the disciples believed in Jesus. Now, those who recognized the new wine recognized the presence of God in their midst. And it was only the disciples who recognized the new wine in their midst. The disciples recognized God's presence in Jesus, and they believed in him. Now, Jesus reveals who he is. He is God. He did this through a sign, through a miracle. Sometimes we are overtaken by the miracle, and we forget the meaning of the miracle, the significance of the miracle. And what was the significance of this miracle? That Jesus is the new wine, Jesus is the salvation come among his people, Jesus is the presence of God. This was his first sign. He will have a number of signs through which he's speaking to us. So, like the disciples, you and I, in this ordinary season, in this ordinary time, have to be very perceptive to the signs that Jesus is working. It is through the signs that he is revealing himself to us. And he's revealing himself to us, telling us that he is God present among us. Now, you and I have to develop the sensitivity of our faith, like the disciples, so that we can pick up the message that Jesus is giving us in these signs. Let us not be foolish by just looking at the miracle, looking at the sign, but go more profoundly to the depth of the sign, the meaning of the sign. The disciples were the first to recognize it and believe in him. For us, we are beginning our journey with Jesus in this first half of Ordinary Time on the second Sunday of Ordinary Time. Do you recognize God's presence in Jesus? Do I recognize God's presence in Jesus? As we begin this journey with Jesus, am I willing to believe in Him? Am I willing to take the risk to believe in Him? Am I willing to allow Him to change me by believing in Him? When I believe in Jesus, then I'm open to change. Am I willing to journey with Jesus, and on this journey to listen to His voice and let Him lead me in the path of righteousness? Here then, we are at the beginning of Ordinary Time. Jesus reveals Himself. Let us see Jesus and let us attentively listen to Jesus. So let us then be excited as we begin the first half of Ordinary Time. And this Sunday, on the second Sunday of Ordinary Time, Jesus reveals Himself. Do you get it?